Hello everyone, welcome to episode 3 of Real Talk. This is the series where we talk about life and faith and answer your questions that you've posted to us. The other 2 episodes are on YouTube for you guys to watch. The first one being about faith, the second one being worship. But this week, our episode is all about singleness, dating and relationships. So we've got a special guest with us, like we have on the other 2 episodes. So we're going to discuss those questions, but I'll introduce the guest to you. Actually, you can introduce yourself. That would be awesome.
I can introduce myself.
Go for it.
Hi everyone, I hope you're all well. Thank you so much for having me on this as well. What an honour and a privilege. My name is Elliemae. I am a youth worker up in the north of England where it feels a lot colder. And that's what I do day to day.
Awesome.
So again, thanks for having me.
Yeah, no, thanks for being on it. It's going to be awesome. We've had loads of youth questions on this subject. It's been a popular subject this week, so we'll go into those in a second and we'll kind of discuss those things because there's loads of things we want to ask you. But what I thought we'd do is, as we've done the previous weeks, not everybody's going to know who you are. So I thought we'd do a little bit of a get to know you kind of quick fire questions round. So we've done this the last couple of weeks where we just give you some questions with some options. The idea is that you can't think about it too much. You just kind of got to say the first thing that comes into your head and you can't elaborate. Okay, so you've got to just it's got to be just on the top of your head. No pressure.
Okay. Well, I played Articulate the other day with my husband, and so I feel like I'm ready for this.
Yeah, you've had
Let
good
me
practice
my coffee
then.
out the way
I
just
love
in case you get
Articulate.
excited.
That's a great game.
Go for it.
Okay, here we go. First question. We'll rattle them off kind of one by one.
Okay.
Here we go. Dogs or cats?
Cat.
McDonald's or Burger King?
McDonald's.
City break or beach holiday?
Beach holiday.
Okay, long haul flight or long car journey?
Long car journey. No, long...
Really? That surprises me, car journey. I thought you'd be a flight.
Car journey. I can't elaborate.
Christmas or Easter?
Christmas. But then Jesus. But, I mean, Jesus part of both. Christmas.
All Jesus themed.
All Jesus.
Themed. TikTok or Instagram?
Instagram.
Knew it. Text or call?
Call. Awful at texting.
Okay. Ketchup or brown sauce?
Ketchup.
Brunch or dinner?
Brunch.
Love that. I love the way you're gearing yourself up. You're like... I love it. Ant or deck?
Deck.
To be fair, that's a hard one because I kind of never know which one's which. Because they just come...
Ant always stands on the left side and deck. So ant and deck.
You've clearly been watching I'm a Celeb this year. Okay, Strictly Come Dancing or I'm a Celebrity?
I'm a Celebrity all the way.
Love it. And this is the last question. This is a biggie, okay? Essex or Leeds?
Stop it. Oh, no, because if I say Leeds, then everyone's going to hate me and turn off. So for this video, I'm going to say Essex.
Good, correct.
Just because I don't want everyone to hate me on this video.
I was, if you said Leeds, I was going to have to end the video. And just be like, thanks for your time today, guys. Tune in next week. No, that is a hard question, to be fair. But yeah, Essex at heart. Okay,
Essex at
so
heart, yeah.
we're going to go into some of the questions in a second that the young people have asked. Yeah. But what I thought we'd do is, because this is all about relationships and dating, you're obviously married to the wonderful Dan. He's an awesome guy. And I thought we would just ask you if you could kind of tell us how you guys met, how you guys kind of started being a couple, all those kind of things. A bit of a love story. We all have a love story. So if you could tell us that, that'd be awesome.
So you want the gossip? That's what you want. You want the tea.
Goss. We do.
The lowdown.
Spill the tea.
So I am married to a wonderful man. His name is Dan. He's actually the worship pastor at our church, so we work together. We met in a classic Christian way. We met at a Christian conference. And I was set up in the balcony of this church. I was an intern at the time with all of my friends. And this guy walked on stage. And at that time, I was really trying to hone in my singleness, which I'm sure we'll talk about a little bit later. And I was like, no, don't focus on the really attractive guy. Like, I'm here for Jesus. I'm a strong, independent woman.
Amen.
Whatever. And then this guy turned around, looked up and waved at me. And I was thinking,
wow.
Stop it. I was about to wave back and thank the Lord. Maybe it was an angel, I don't know. But he was waving to my friend next to me. He knew my friend. Oh. Could you imagine if I was like, and it's the wrong...
That would have been horrendous. Oh my goodness.
And we've all been there as well. We've all done that thing where you see a random person on the street and you're like, why are you waving at me? And you do it back, and, it's
then
just
you pretend
the
to
walk
just
of
play with your
shame
hair. You
afterwards.
pretend to just sort of start doing your hair like, okay.
Oh, yeah,
Yeah,
exactly. It's
so
so
awkward.
uncomfortable. But then I found out, obviously, that my friend knew him. So I was trying to be sly and was like, who is this guy? Oh, I'm sure he's a wonderful worship leader. Can't wait for him to like lead us in worship, whatever. But I was interested. And so that's how we kind of met. And then throughout the conference, while he was playing worship, he shouldn't have been doing this. While he was playing worship, we clocked eyes.
Classic.
And
Classic.
kind of hamming things up a little bit. But yeah, that is how we first met. And we met a little bit then later on. But I, in the end, wasn't interested in him. I was, but I didn't think he would ever like me back, because I actually messaged him and he blanked me. He blanked my message. And so I was, again, honing in my singleness, strong woman, and was like, fine then, done with you. I don't need that.
Thank you. Next.
That's okay.
Yeah.
Move on.
Wow, I did not know that.
And we were at another conference, so I just
that.
ignored him. Yeah, I ignored him. When he would come my way, I'd walk the other way. And turns out he was trying to get my attention to ask me out on a date. He had bought concert tickets to ask me out to go out on a date with him.
Love that.
And
That's awesome.
finally, he answered back.
That's an
and
awesome.
We went on a couple of dates.
That's an awesome first date. That. I love that.
Yeah, it wasn't the first date. It was for a little bit later on. But
Okay.
we went for a walk by the river in York.
Nice.
Had a cheeky coffee.
Did you find yourself doing that classic church thing where you're kind of church stalking and you accidentally by purpose end up sitting next to the person and you're just like, oh hey, sorry, didn't realise you were there. Oh, I was just reading my Bible and worshipping. Sorry. Oh,
Look how
what a
holy
coincidence.
I am.
Yeah.
Look how much I love Jesus.
Like third week in a row, you're still next to him. Like, oh, sorry, we keep bumping into each other.
No, I didn't do that. That's the thing. I think thankfully we weren't a part of the same church.
Oh, okay.
I think
I don't know if I would have had the courage to have like pursued him in that way.
Yeah, I feel
So
like
it kind of worked out. We kind of like bumped into each other in different parts of the north.
yeah,
And then we got together.
that's awesome.
turns out that we just had great chemistry. We were like best friends, and
Love that.
it worked.
Yeah, that's
Now we're
awesome.
married to him.
I know, it's crazy. It's so cool. Love it.
Happily ever after.
It's funny because even when we talk about it, I've known you for so long. Obviously, we kind of grew up together and in the church, and we were kind of have the same friendship group and all that sort of stuff. It's so funny to kind of, I don't know, we're kind of old now.
I know. It's so weird. And we were talking about this because we were part of the same youth group. We were great friends. And at the time when we were in youth, we were dating other youth as well. And when we would go to places like Soul Survivor, they always had the relationship seminar on.
Yeah.
And all of us were like, we need to be wise people. We're going to go to these seminars.
Classic.
And we would always go. Every single year we would go to these relationship seminars.
Yeah, it's true.
And
now we're
and now
talking
we're
about
on the
it.
other side of it. Like, what? How did that happen?
I know. Now we've got to share some wisdom. No pressure.
Yeah, we're not, by the way, everyone, we're not like relationship gurus. Like, we don't have all the wisdom in the world, but we'll share what we've known.
Yeah, definitely. And I think that's the beauty of this. I think that's the kind of thing I don't think necessarily, I don't think there's always like one perfect answer. I think that's the great thing about kind of discussion and discussing these ideas. And I think even for the young people watching, I think that's an important thing, just to kind of really pray into these things and think about them. And it's cool. It's awesome. Sweet. Well, let's get into the questions then, because the youth have asked some great questions. They've posted their questions in on Instagram. And so they've, there's quite a few we'll go through. And we'll see what happens. So let's go for the first one. Someone's posted on Instagram, when do you know a person is the right person to date? Which I thought was a great question. How do you know?
Interesting.
Now, I've had conversations with my youth about this before because I think there's some confusion about what does dating mean. I would view, personally, dating that middle part between being single and being together with someone. Is that how we're viewing dating?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Okay.
Kind of getting to know someone.
I think
Maybe the first part of the question is, like, are you ready to date? I think sometimes, and I know I definitely felt this in my teenage years, that we can kind of get swept up in this whirlwind of love and relationships, and it's all new and exciting, especially if you haven't dated someone before, and it seems sometimes all you tend to talk about is who likes who or who's the person you fancy. And I think actually if you can take yourself out of that whirlwind, maybe have a different perspective, are you in a place where you're ready to date and to see someone? Because I think maybe looking back for me personally in my life, I think I got swept up, and it meant that I was definitely maybe that person that would be together with someone for like 2 days, freak out, and then you have to part ways, and it was awkward and uncomfortable. So I think the first part maybe is, how do you feel in your singleness? What would being together with someone feel like for you? How's your relationship with God? Just seeing the perspective for you going into maybe a relationship or dating someone. Not to go in like deep and crazy for the first one, but I know that sometimes my perspective on dating was that I just wanted to be loved by someone, or I just wanted to have that attention, or I just wanted to feel that, or to give out love, to care for someone myself, without necessarily having a stable relationship with God and realizing my everything came from Him. And so I think maybe like some important questions to first start is where's your heart in this? How do you feel in your singleness? And where does your, I guess, fulfillment come from? Because the last thing you want is to go into a relationship just wanting to be with someone for the sake of it. And I think then that can make, you can end up making bad decisions or wrong decisions.
Yeah, I think that's so important.
So maybe...
Yeah, I don't know whether that helps you understand in some ways who the right person is to date. But also, like, do you get on with that person on a practical level? Do you respect them? Do you have, I guess in some ways, like similar interests? But are you on kind of the same wavelength when it comes to church and to God? Are your core values similar? Yeah, I don't know. What do you think? How would you answer that?
I think that's awesome what you've said. I think that's amazing. I think that there's so much pressure these days, I think, to kind of get a boyfriend or a girlfriend. And I think also there's this kind of mentality, especially on social media, this idea of kind of getting a boyfriend or girlfriend for winter. This kind of, this thing of, and I think that because there's so much pressure and everybody kind of talks about it, I think that when you are single, it then somehow kind of feels like you're missing out, or you're kind of, that somehow you're kind of secondary, like, oh, no one's pursuing you, no one's doing this, and it can make you feel a bit rubbish. But actually, I think that kind of not having weekend plans is not a good reason to date somebody. Like, you don't want to date somebody just because it's someone to see on the weekend, or or just to kind of make plans. It needs to be more than that, because it's a big decision. And I think also we live in a kind of I guess we live in a world where I guess people don't always think about the relationship part of it. It's just kind of like, the dating and dating around and all that kind of stuff. And I think it's, I think it's an important thing to step into, like you said, knowing where you're at and knowing if you're in a good headspace for it. And I think also kind of knowing that your identity and all those things are in God and your relationship with God. And because I think once you're securing that, I think those other things become a lot easier. And it leads to less disappointment, and it becomes a lot easier to step into that. So I think that's awesome what you said, for sure.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think, we kind of tapped. I don't know whether there are more questions about singleness, whether I should wait to answer that. But I think sometimes singleness can be viewed as a waiting room. So you're only single, that's where you're going to stay until you get in a relationship. But I also think in society we hold relationships up to such a high place that it almost becomes like an idol that we're looking for or striving for or worshipping. I think even culturally there was that, now I might be showing a bit more of my age, but there was that song Drunken Love. Remember that song? Maybe don't listen to it because there are some bad parts in it, but I think as a culture we can get so drunk on this idea and the feelings and be swept up that, again, maybe some unhelpful decisions are made in that. You go onto Netflix and it's all about the relationship or the striving for a relationship, the getting together, the breaking up. It's either a drama or it's this massive, I don't know, love, comedy, whatever, romantic thing. And so I think everywhere we turn, we can even listen to music and it's all about this person. So I think it is actually really hard to have a viewpoint in society today that singleness is also a good and a healthy place to be as well. And I don't think society, and maybe we don't talk about it enough in church about singleness, the importance and the value of that as well.
Yeah, definitely. I think that's really important. And even just when you said that, it just reminded me of this idea that, you know, God's plan for you doesn't start when you get into a relationship. You know, God's got a plan for you, you know, and he's got things for you. And actually, I guess the things that God's got planned for you kind of start now. Like God's working in people and yeah, I think even when you're single, like you've got this opportunity to just go kind of, you know, head first into what God's got for you and really pursue it. And I think along the way, you know, then if you meet somebody and, you know, they've got that kind of drive to do the things for God as well. And you know, that's when it kind of becomes a great thing, because you're both kind of, you've got that goal and you know what God's heading you towards and stuff like that. And I think actually, yeah, even when you're single, that I think God's got great, you know, God's got great plans for you, and there's things you got, you know, you can do, and I think that's really important.
Yeah, my mum had a really helpful, sorry we're spending so much time on this, but we said we'd end up bouncing off one another. That my mum had a really beautiful kind of way of talking about it. She probably got it from somewhere else, I don't know. But she always said, like, keep your eyes fixed on God, like you are running the race, right, set out before us. Keep your eyes fixed on God, and if someone comes up next to you and beside you, brilliant, because then you can run towards God together. But in a race, I mean, you've seen like Mo Farah or whatever, they don't often ever look behind, and they're not even necessarily always looking at the person ahead. They're looking to that end point. And actually, if we are looking towards God, and you know, that is our end goal, that's the point, that's the thing we're running towards, like that's so important to make sure our eyes are on him. And if someone comes alongside you in this place, and they're running as well, you're running together, that's the kind of thing you want. Not to look back and actually end up slowing you down. Run for God. And if someone comes alongside you, cool.
Pauline's got wisdom. I love that. Mama Pauline. Love it. This kind of leads on to our next question quite nicely, because it says, someone's asked on Instagram, a lot of people say date around to find out what you do and don't like. How would you go about doing this? And I think also maybe added into that question is that a good idea, I guess? So this idea of kind of, you know, dating maybe quite a few different people to figure out what you kind of like and don't like. I guess in the world and culturally, that's kind of quite an accepted thing. But I don't know, as kind of followers of Jesus, you know, how do we kind of wrestle with that idea?
That is such a good question. Whoever asked that, well done. Such a good question. And again, like you said, I think in the world that is something that people do, and I think sometimes it's almost encouraged to do. But even the word like just date around, I feel like that devalues the people that you end up dating, because then actually it's all about you, what you want, what you need, without maybe honouring and respecting the person that you're looking to date as well. The person that you're dating is still human. And so part of me worries with that, just because I wonder whether unhealthy behaviour then starts coming out. Because I think what you want to do when you're dating someone, even if you're not sure if you want to be in a relationship, dating, it is helpful to see whether you do want to commit, whether you do want to be in a relationship with that person. But yeah, I think I just wonder whether we put the emphasis too much on ourselves. And I think there isn't a lot, I mean, it's frustrating. We want to go to the Bible for everything we do, but there's not a lot in there about dating. But what it does talk about is how we treat and love and honour and respect other people, right? We love God, we love others, we serve God, we serve others. And the idea of dating around in that regard makes me wonder whether we can do that well. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. It's a good question. I don't know whether there's like a...
I love that. I think it's awesome thinking about it in that sense, because I think it's so important to recognise, you know, when you I don't know, if you are pursuing someone, you know, the reality is I think often we do kind of think about what we can take from that, or what they can give to us, or how they can make us feel, or, you know, how they can make us feel more confident, or whatever it is. But actually the reality is that what am I offering this person? You know, like in my character, like how am I building them up? How am I encouraging them? Is this something that I feel like I can do? And I think that's really important. And also, I don't know, I think dating's, you know, I guess it is a healthy thing to do, to kind of, you know, figure out if there's something with someone. But I also think that, I guess, when you've got the attitude of it being a kind of a throwaway thing, in the sense that I'm talking, you know, you see this thing where, you know, you've got someone talking to, like, you know, 6 or 7 girls at the same time, you know, texting, you know, and then this reality of kind of this whole ghosting thing, where, you know, you just kind of like stop texting someone or block them or delete them, and it kind of all just ends. This idea, like, I think what you kind of said about, you know, treating people with respect and actually being intentional, I think that's really important. You know, I think I think it's good to kind of, I think if you've got someone that you like and that you want to explore something with, I think that's a good thing to go on a date with them, because I think naturally on a date you do discover, I think you probably would discover what you maybe like and don't like, and also you're sharing with that person what you like and don't like at the same time. So but I think this kind of, you know, this instant throwaway culture, I guess, of kind of just talking to loads of people and it not really going anywhere, and kind of, you know, I don't know if that's massively healthy.
No.
Well, it kind of, like you said, it then becomes about fulfilling your needs. And like, we know that, I mean, we just said, how do we love, how do we honour, how do we respect people? We want the other person that we're dating to do the same thing. That works. You know, if it's just one way, that's also not healthy. But I also think that dating someone doesn't mean you're going to marry them. So it's helpful in that respect, because you're getting to know them. It's all about getting to know them. But I think there has to be an ounce of respect for them, so that it's not just a throwaway thing. Are you interested? Cool. Go on a first date and see if that works. If it doesn't, you can be honest and open with them and not go on the second date or whatever. But I think maybe sometimes we take the respect and honour out of dating, and it becomes this weird place of, like you said, ghosting, or we devalue it to the point where you do end up seeing multiple people at the same time.
I don't think that's helpful either.
Yeah, that's so good. I love that. That's really good advice. The next question is more about kind of commitment, I guess, really. Kind of, it says, does God have one specific person for you to marry?
Interesting.
That's a really interesting question, I thought.
Personally, from what I believe, I don't think that God has just one set apart person for you to be with. Part of me thinks that it's unhelpful sometimes to think so, because I think it does make dating and getting to know people very difficult, because then you end up in a whirlwind of, but what if this is the one and I've just dumped them? Or what if this is the one and I've just let them go? And now I'm not going to have any chance of getting to know someone, love someone, be loved, whatever. So personally, I don't think that God just has one set apart person for you. What do you think?
Yeah, I think it's difficult, because I think it's kind of almost along that idea of soulmates, isn't it? This kind of idea of, like, you know, one perfect person for everybody. But I don't believe that necessarily, because I just think it could never work, because it you know, if 100 years ago or 200, 300 years ago someone got the wrong person, then it would have messed up the chain for everybody else. And so I don't think there's that one specific person that, you know, you're meant to date, and if you don't, or marry, and if you don't, it's all kind of, you know, over. I think the beauty of God really is that I think he gives us free will, and I think he gives us free will to choose who we want to marry. But then I think the awesome thing in that is that he doesn't just give us free will and just let us get on with it. He gives us free will, but also gives us so much content in the Bible and speaks so much into how we go about doing that, and the best ways to do that, and the best ways to love somebody. And I think that's the beauty of the Bible, is that actually it's not just kind of, it's not like God says, right, you've got free choice, just go for it and do what you like. I'm not going to help you along the way. I think like God gives us really good instructions almost on God maybe not instructions is not the best way to put it, but just advice really on how to make those decisions wisely, and actually to really think about those decisions and make them wisely. I think that God's heart for us is for two people to be together that have that common goal, like you said before, that kind of finish line of doing the things that God's got for them and for them. So that would be my I think kind of opinion.
It's so true, and I think it's kind of like that whole Disney princess love story thing, that we see these people get together and then it's happily ever after, but we never actually see the happily ever after. Yeah. And the thing is, love is amazing, but it's also really hard work.
Yeah.
And it does take hard work. It does take commitment. And just because, like, me and Dan, for example, love him to bits. I am so grateful I'm married to him, that I found my person, love him. But our life is not a Disney movie. It is not sunny and bright all the time. And it does take commitment, like I said, and it does take work. And I think maybe having that viewpoint of there's going to be that one person for my life means that everything is going to be perfect. As soon as you find them, as soon as you get married, as soon as you make that commitment, everything is going to fall into place. Everything's going to be rosy, but it takes work. And also, we are only humans, right? We're not God. We're not perfect in every single way. So, like you said, like, the Bible is so helpful, but also church community is so helpful. I know me and you have spoken about this time before, but we had Dave as our youth worker, and we were so blessed to have him because he was so brilliant, and I'm so grateful. But I still remember the sit-down chats that I had with him and Beth about the relationships that I had at the time, and the wisdom that he had from his own experience and his own past was really helpful, to listen to people that have gone before us, that have the wisdom to bring it back to this place. To have people like mentors, or have someone in your life that can speak truth into your relationships as well, I think is really important. And even thinking about your friendship groups, right? I had best friends who made me laugh, that was silly, brought the energy, but were they wise? Did they give good advice? No. And then I had maybe another friend, or a friend or two, who brought the wisdom and who brought the good advice because they had my best interest at heart. And I think surrounding yourself, or knowing who those people are that have your best interest at heart, is so important. For me personally, also my parents were those people. I don't know if everyone has parents like that, or grandparents, or an adult in their life, but I often listen to my parents when they said, actually, we don't think this is a good idea. And again, they've lived through it and they've been through it. So taking wisdom from other people and having a good church family and a youth group is so special in that time as well.
Yeah, so good. That's so awesome. Yeah, for sure, 100%. Okay, the next question is someone wrote into and asked, I'm a Christian, but what if I like someone that isn't?
We've both been there, haven't we, Sam?
Well, I'm about to say, I feel like we've kind of, I guess, both got experience in that.
Yeah.
Not just, I guess, in a theory sense, but I guess we've lived it out.
Yeah, we have. What do you think? Can I ask you to kick this one off? Yeah,
for sure. It's a difficult thing. It's a difficult thing. I think that there's lots of different ways of looking at this, in the sense because I know that when I was a young person, I got advice on this subject from people like David and people like that. But I know that it wasn't always advice that I necessarily listened to, but it was definitely advice that I should have listened to. I know the difficulty of this situation, because I guess if you're at school and you like somebody, and you know that you're flirting back and forth and all those different things, I guess it's so easy to get caught up in all of that. Like we said before about the whole love thing, it's easy to get kind of caught up in it all. But then, I don't know, when you then go to people who are wise and that give you kind of, I guess, wise counsel and advice, I think that the feeling of excitement then completely overtakes the advice that you're given, and I think deep down you know those things. But I think there's this idea of kind of like flirt to convert, for example. It's kind of like this idea that, oh, like if I bring them to church and you know, and they become a Christian, then that's fine. And in my experience, that's never worked for me. I don't, you know, that's never happened for me. I can't say it's never worked for anybody else because maybe it has. I don't know, but just in my experience of that, that's never really happened. Whenever I've pursued a girl that's not a Christian, and I've just thought, oh, it's fine because I'll bring them to church, and within 2 weeks I'll become a Christian, and it'll all be fine. That's not my experience. That never really happened, to be honest. So I can't really say it's a bad thing. But I just think that this idea, it goes back to this idea really of kind of making your priority your relationship with God, and kind of this idea that, you know, God's got plans for you and he's got purposes for you and he's got adventure for you. But in order to kind of access those things, you need to follow him, and he is all in. And this idea that actually, you know, as followers of Jesus, we're called to be all in. We're called to pick up our cross and follow. And you can't, you're either following or you're not. You can't half follow. And so there's this idea of kind of like, I think sometimes even as young people, when I was a young person, there was this idea that like, okay, God, I'll give you all of this stuff, but I've still got one foot really firmly planted in this, and I don't want to give you this because I know I have to like listen and I have to take advice. And so I think that's like that with dating. I think if you date someone that's not a Christian, I think the difficulty of that is that you're, you know, if you're kind of all in for Jesus, then your life decisions, the way that you live, the decisions you make, the things you do are all kind of based around that experience of God for you. And I think the difficulty of dating someone that's not a Christian is that they have a different thought process. And so for me, whenever I've dated non-Christians, it's always started out, you know, great, and it feels already, you know, it feels awesome. But then I think down the line you start to have conversations about life and the future and different decisions that you make, and I think that's when then, you know, the differences start to come up. And I think then as a Christian, you're then put in that position where, from my experience, I think it comes down to courage or compromise. You either make the courageous choice and say, do you know what, I'm going to stand firm in what I believe in God. I'm going to be brave. I know it sucks and I know it's hard, but do you know what, I'm going to be brave and follow what Jesus has told me because I believe it's true and I've experienced him. Or you compromise on your faith and you start to go a different path, and you start to say, actually, you know what, I'm not going to go to church on Sundays so much, and I'm not going to, you know, I'm going to miss this youth event because I'm going out with this person on that night. And I think slowly but surely those things, you know, kind of take place and kind of maybe sometimes draw you away. It comes down to courage or compromise. What are you going to do in that situation? And do you want to put yourself in that position? Because the reality is if you date someone that knows Jesus and has a relationship with Jesus and that their heart's for him, then like you said before, you can run that race together. You can encourage each other in that and build each other up. It doesn't mean that you have to be called to the same thing. Doesn't mean that you have to do the same things. But just this basic understanding of like you've both got a relationship with Jesus. I think is important.
And it's so awesome to be able to come before God together with someone again that holds the same values. And I do want to throw out like a bit of caution if I can, to say that again, we are all humans. Christians are humans too, and we so often say, well, find a nice Christian boy or find a nice Christian girl, but that doesn't mean that internally we don't all battle with different things. And so again, to have someone in the church, whether that's your youth worker or a mentor or someone that can kind of hold you accountable and journey through either dating or your relationship as well, is really important so that you can make wise decisions. Because I think sometimes when we say just find a nice Christian person, means that, oh yeah, we're all saints, we're all holy, we're all floating off the ground like little angels, but we're humans and we also struggle with things. So it doesn't necessarily mean that you're not going to battle temptation and you're not going to find some things difficult. And just because you're both Christians doesn't mean that you are going to be compatible. It might mean that you just don't get on that well, and that's fine. And so to also be wise in the realm of Christian dating too, and to make sure that you've got wise counsel. Well, that sounds so like biblical, but you've got wise people around you as well.
Yeah, I think that's really important, because I also think, even going back to that, just going off what you said, I think even like thinking about a Christian and a non-Christian, if you're a Christian and you're kind of, I guess, you like a non-Christian, it doesn't mean that you're a better person than them.
No.
So it doesn't mean that they're a terrible person, that you're a great person because, and you've got it all together and sorted, because, again, like we're none of us are perfect. So it's not, I don't think it's ever that thing of, I don't think it should ever be looked at in that sense of like, oh, you're a non-Christian, so you're not a great person. Things, because I don't think that's the case. But I also think that, from my experience, I know that a lot of the decision, a lot of unwise decisions that I made were inside those kind of Christian and non-Christian relationships. When I was dating non-Christian girls, I made a lot of decisions that I regret. But I think the difficulty with those things is that often the repercussions of those decisions, or sometimes the hurt from those decisions, or whatever, aren't always. Sometimes they come up and crop up kind of years later. And I know that there's been other times in my life where I've looked back on decisions that I made in those seasons, and they're kind of things you still sometimes have to deal with and kind of figure out sometimes. And I think what I don't always think you have to make the mistake to learn the lesson.
No, it's so true.
I think for me, I always had that attitude of, let me just live my life. Let me just, I've got to make the mistakes, because how will I ever learn? I just think, actually, do you know what? I wish I'd never made the mistakes. I wish I'd just taken the advice and taken.
Yeah, and even just what you just said about like, let me live my life. Again, I know that a lot of you struggle with this, and I think there's probably times in our adult life as well we may struggle with it, but we often, I remember when it could have been Dave or someone was like, no, but don't date this person. I'm like, you're such a fun sucker. I remember saying that, like, you're such a fun sponge. Yeah. Like, you just don't want me to have fun. You don't want me to enjoy myself. And like, what's the worst thing that's going to happen if I have sex with this person? Like, what's the worst that can happen? Why won't you let me go and just live my life and have fun? But there's a reason why these boundaries are put around us, and why it's important as well. I think it's amazing that you're doing these series to be able to like talk through this kind of thing. But actually there is so much freedom that comes from choosing God first. And I think, again, we can speak about this from the past that we've lived with relationships, is that there is so much more freedom in choosing God. And then going on to date and be in relationships from that.
Yeah, definitely. I think it sounds a little bit cheesy, and even actually David used to say this to me quite a lot. I think he probably still does in lots of things, but just pray about it. Do just pray about stuff. I think like sometimes it can seem a bit cheesy in that, I guess, like the Christian answer, but the reality is that God has stuff to say about this. God loves you. God wants you to make good decisions. He wants you to live life to the fullest. That's what it says in the Bible. It's promised to us as followers of Jesus. And I do think that God will speak to you on those.
100%.
If you're like a girl or a guy that's not a Christian, you're struggling with it and you don't know what to do, I just think, tell God, because he will tell you, he will show you what to do one way or another. And I think also, like, in your heart of hearts, deep down, like you always, know the right decision to make. Whether you listen to it or not, I think God will tell you, and he's a good father, so he wants to give you good advice, and he wants to make those good decisions. So I think it sounds cheesy, but I think just those moments where you're in your bedroom and you just say to God, look, I'm struggling with this. Can you, please, I just need help. Can you just tell me? Just being really real with God. I think if you're with God, he'll just be real back, and I think. I think he would give you advice on those things. They're all our questions that the young people asked, but I'm sure in this conversation there's probably more questions that are stirring up in the young people's mind. But no, there might be a part 2 to this one day. Make a second one. I know that it's a subject that I think probably all young people and even older people think about and have questions about. But thank you so much for being on the kind of the show today.
That's all right. I loved it.
About this stuff and kind of discussing it and wrestling with these ideas. It's been awesome. So young people, if you've got questions still, you can still post them in. I'm sure there'll be other opportunities to do more of these videos. But follow us on our social media pages, where we've got one more episode in this series to go, and there'll be a new subject, a new guest, so you can post your questions in. But the link should be up on the screen now. And so Elliemae, so we're going to say goodbye. But it's been awesome. It's been good to see you, and we'll catch you soon.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me. God bless.
All right, see you later, guys. Thank you. Bye.